Welcome to Talking Straight. I'm Suresh Kochattil. It's a movement that is still shrouded in secrecy, and no one knows really what happened. I'm talking of the days leading up to the US presidential election that saw Biden win over President Trump. What really happened behind the scenes at Twitter? Now that Elon Musk has released files, what is called the Twitter files, involving former legal head of Twitter, Vijaya Gadde, and her role in a lot of activities that went behind the scenes. Primarily, it all started with the laptop of Hunter Biden, President Biden's son, that was actually supposed to have been lost or misplaced or given for repair, or God knows what really happened. Those files contain damaging information about the deals that Hunter Biden had with certain Ukrainians and would have potentially damaged President Biden in his attempt. But that information was suppressed by Vijaya Gadde. Why did she do it? How did she do it? In a lengthy piece of tweets that went viral last week, we saw how Vijaya actually controlled the entire flow of events at Twitter. When we think of these things and how this entire account was handled and how President Trump's account was suspended, so were the accounts of the former White House communication chief, we begin to wonder, how much power does social media have? How much power does social media have on each one of us? And how much does it control the external environment? A presidential election, that too a US presidential election, has many contentious issues. A small piece of information can literally damage the candidate. We saw that with John F. Kennedy, and we saw that with subsequent US presidents. But in this case, what did Vijaya Gadde do? She suppressed the information. She suspended people who were trying to rake up that information, and she actually killed a story that came in one of the prominent US newspapers. Now, when you look at the Indian context, how much role did this lady, Vijaya Gadde, have on the Indian part of the Twitter? We saw that during the farmers' agitation, during the Delhi riots, and later during the other riots that followed, including the Kanpur riots, there were moments when we all suspected what we now fear really happened. Was this lady controlling the Indian Twitter site too? Because very well known to all of us is the fact that most of the Twitterites who get the blue ticks on Twitter in India, from India, are actually leftist. Anybody who hates Narendra Modi or BJP is given a blue tick. We saw when Jack Dorsey came down to India, the famous photograph had with few journalists, if you can call them that, was very, very telling. Who are these people? What were they doing with him? What was the so-called patriarchy they were all speaking about? What were the Brahminism they were calling out? It all boils down to the fact that media today, I'm talking of social media today, is controlled in a very highly regulated environment in certain countries. But there are people like Vijaya Gadde who play behind the scenes role and damage the credibility of certain individuals and organizations. There is a hue and cry in the US asking for her to be jailed for contempt, and also an investigation into the role of President Biden, who ironically appointed her as an advisor in the Department of Homeland Security. Was that a quid pro quo for having saved his son and his election? Naturally, everything now calls into question. Why did she do what she did? Was she paid for this attempt? Was there an ulterior motive in ensuring that the files, that the Hunter Biden files, were killed in action? That too, to ensure that that information doesn't leak and damage President Biden's campaign. Why was President Trump's account suspended when many other accounts with similar tweets were allowed to go on? Why was there a concerted campaign run against him? All these need answers. And surely the parties in the United States, both on the Democrats and Republicans, will have to really look at this in all seriousness. We were told during the run-up to the US election that the Russians were interfering big time. Now it turns out more than the Russians, it looks like the Ukrainians were behind all this through Hunter Biden. What were they doing in an election, manipulating to ensure that Biden wins and Putin attacks Ukraine and US goes to the aid of Ukraine? It all connects up if you connect up the dots. There is more than that is there that meets the eye here. And I'm scared how much of that is happening in India. The amount of negative publicity that Mr. Modi gets every day is accentuated by the fact that every small incident that is against the BJP or against Modi or against Hindus is amplified on Twitter. Suddenly we see the toolkit gang going active. And we saw that when the jury of the film festival, one of the jury members, I don't even want to take his name, actually commented and said Kashmir Files is a vulgar movie. Within minutes, same kind of text was going across the board as if a toolkit has been activated. How is that certain accounts in Twitter in India, like Alt News, Mohammed Zubair, is allowed to get away with fake news every day? His account is not even suspended, whereas many other accounts have got suspended. My account too was held back for a week almost. I wanted to know what is wrong that we do just because we are on the right side. We are the ones supporting Modi ji or BJP or the cause of Hindutva. Definitely the Twitter team in India also needs to be investigated. We need to know who are the people who are censoring the content in India. Who are the people who are not allowing the true voice to be heard? Who are the people who are allowing the likes of Zubair and others to get away with all that? Rana Ayub, Sabah Naqvi, Rajdeep Sardesai, they all peddle fake news day in and day out. Yet they are allowed to get away. They note the tweet is not even tagged as fake. And that's a sad part. And we saw that with Amit Malviya before the elections, last elections, and after the elections too, that many of his tweets were tagged as saying they were disputed or fake. We saw that with President Trump. Now draw a parallel. This entire ecosystem at Twitter, now that Elon Musk is in charge, needs to be investigated. And those who manipulated the farmers' agitation, the Delhi riots, the Jamia Millia Islamia riots and others should be behind bars. Freedom ends where my nose begins, as they say. Your freedom ends where my nose begins. And definitely freedom is not absolute. Every freedom has its boundaries. And India, social media is being manipulated. Facebook is another example of it. And that too, Facebook too needs an investigation. Who are the people who are censoring the content in India? Which companies, which individuals are allowed to censor accounts? Why are they suspending only certain right-wing accounts and right-wing news, while the left-wing, the communist and the jihadi elements are allowed to get away? Definitely, we at Nationalist Hub are asking for a detailed investigation into this. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, the Ministry of IT, everybody needs to get into action. We need to unearth the truth. There are many other Vijaya Gaddes hiding in India, and we need to dig them out soon. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind.
Please subscribe to Nationalist Hub English channel for more interesting videos, and don't forget to like and share this video. Nationalist Hub, it's a news revolution.